sort of area of control. You should do an Explain Like I'm 5 series. Wise words with Vedius. You just like explain things in that way.
See, I also want to rename Vision to just the word light because I think it would be so much better.
Oh, they're getting light around here.
Look how much light they've gained around the dragon. It's great. Anyway,
we are into picks and bans. Shen ban, Syndra ban, and a LeBlanc ban coming out. We actually didn't see a Shen ban nor a Shen picking one, so it's interesting to see PSG decide that it's a priority ban for them.
Well, it was because Millenium went for a very early Rumble, so PSG didn't want to pick the Shen into the Rumble.
You know what else we didn't see picks or bans last game?
Tell me.
Camille.
Oh yeah, but I feel like she's fallen off a little bit.
She has a huge amount. Lots of people know how to counter her now as well. Renekton is really strong into her, so...
The fascinating thing that the LMS have been doing is they've actually not been playing Camille even when she was broken. They just didn't care. They let her open all the time. They just didn't think she was that valuable of a pick, which sometimes she would just completely get through the draft without any worries whatsoever. Anyway, that's beside the point.
Camille might get completely through the draft here once again. Jace ban, Rengar ban. So typical bans from the red side here from Millenium. PSG just taking away some of the picks they think are a bit more powerful. And Varus finally. Wouldn't be surprised if PSG go for that Jhin first pick here.
They could do. Pilot has demonstrated his proficiency on the AD carry before. No surprise. I feel like that is a free prediction.
Hey, this is everyone I can get as a play-by-play is a win for me.
All right, what do you predict they'll pick next?
Probably their bot lane. Pinoy would go Caitlyn. Norscarin will go Lulu.
Oh, really?
Yep.
You think that they're just going to match the bottom lane from before?
It's just going to happen.
Confident from the play-by-play. I think the priority is going to be on the jungle. I think that right now, Steel, he wants to get himself a little bit more of an early aggressive jungler. And what does he do? What does he do, Medic?
He picks up the Elise, but I worry for this because Steel isn't known as an aggressive jungler. He tends to just play around mid lane, play around vision more than anything else, and does look like it's going to be Caitlyn as well for mid lane. Could be the Ashe.
Stop talking about the hovers. It's always Caitlyn, a bait. Mate. You can't.
It's not a hover when it's Pinoy. It's going to be Caitlyn if they pick Ashe now. So just, no! Millenium, why'd you do this to me?
Oh, my word.
I like this, though, because it shows they're stepping away from the conventional style that we saw them play earlier on in the split.
Engage. Look, early aggression from Mimic. It's the engage from the Ashe. This is what I wanted. This is what we're going to be seeing from Challenger. It's more of a bloodbath now.
Adopting your Welsh accent for a little bit.
Whoa, now. Whoa. No. No, mate. No. Anyway, Graves going to be picked up, I think, is a little bit more of a scaling jungler. Great, actually, into Elise. A bit of a niche reason is because of how effectively he kills her spiderlings, and it's surprising how much damage she gets from her spiderlings. So being able to take them away in a 1v1 duel really is helpful.
Also helps you tank up some of the jungle camps on your initial clears, meaning you don't.
But also, just Graves is like, he hurts. Like being hit in the face with a shotgun really sucks. I'm a little surprised that Blanc went for a blind pick as it. I mean, he's always been considered a fairly safe blind pick. He used to be the old Victor is there, you can pick him into anything, which is fine. I mean, like, he had a great game one on it. But I'm just surprised that they put so much value on it early. Like, you could have picked up your support here, like Malzahar's available. You could have gone for a Karma too if you just want that pushing in the bottom lane. But instead, they want to make sure that Blanc is on a mid laner he's comfortable with.
Neither of these supports prioritizing the Malzahar, though. We saw it get all the way through picks and bans last time. It's going to be Tahm Kench here for Millenium, which I like mostly because it denies it from PSG, who, against an Ashe and an Elise, Tahm Kench seems very strong.
You will lose a lot of pushing power, and I feel that if you're PSG now, you just go for something like the Karma. It just gives you that pushing lane. Azir naturally pretty aggressive in terms of pushing lanes. Like, we talk a lot about this. You'll hear us talk all about it in LCS as well because of how valuable pushing lanes are right now in the game. When you have a jungler like Elise, it's super important that you have pushing lanes. Not because you want to try and set up a gank, but dives. Elise is really effective at being able to dive enemy champions. Get yourself that first tower. On top of that, you want to be able to invade as an Elise because of how strong she is in the early game. And you can only do that if you have these pushing lanes. And when you pick a Tahm Kench, you're naturally conceding the ability to push, especially when you put it with a champion like Ashe. So I think while it does allow you to make good mid-game plays, like good rotations around the map, try and punish overextensions, I do think that you're sacrificing a lot of the early game, which in game one is where PSG got themselves the lead in the first place.
Millenium banning out the Zyra and the Gragas here. Fiora is the ban for PSG. So Millenium tried to take away one of those strong pushing supports that you were talking about. However, the Karma is still on the card. Gragas a target ban versus White Knight, something he's played consistently. And perhaps Millenium thought White Knight might pick it up this game because of that Fiora ban. Talia getting taken away from Pity as well. Can still fall back on that Kassadin, on that Rise, on that Syndra. Oh no, Syndra's been banned. On the Kassadin Rise if he wants to.
So I actually love the Talia ban because she is one of the few champions that does really well into Azir. Naturally, Talia is very good against low mobility mages, and you think, oh, Azir's not low mobility. Well, he is, because he's not like a fast mid laner. Sure, he has like the escape, but other than that, it's very easy to punish him during a laning phase scenario to be able to land that combo. So I like the ban, but I also like this pickup from Millenium. Cassio, another great champion, because of the miasma, it then further denies your ability to escape in these situations. And your early trading is very effective. The big problem you're going to have is you have such low range that it's very easy for the Azir to constantly poke you out, punish you, and it does make your laning phase a little bit difficult if you are the Cassio.
How is it playing into the Graves as well, though? Because I feel Cassio, again, quite low mobility unless she's landing that Noxious Blast and getting extra movement speed. I feel there's a lot of pressure that can be enacted by Kyrie and by Blank, and now PSG pick up the Poppy for the top lane, so something just safe and tanky for White Knight. And looking at what support they want, I'd be surprised if it's a Bard. I think Karma, as you said, is probably a great choice here. Lulu's still on the cards as well.
It seems to me that Sproul is something that he's brought out a lot during the Challenger Series, something he's comfortable on. You still have the ability to push, and you can pick pretty much any range support into the Tahm Kench, and you should be fine, right? You're going to have pushing power into that. So I think that this is a perfectly safe pick, nothing wrong with it. Stick to comfort, gives you a lot more peel. If the Ash Arrow comes through, you have that extra bit of utility to keep your ally alive. It's great for champions like Renekton as well. Lulu, I'm surprised Renekton actually went into this because of how effective she is at like kiting, right? Because you give the movement speed bonus from the Whimsy, you have the Glitter Lance for the slow, you have the shield. Really good for keeping that Renekton off your carry's back. So
Poppy pretty good into the Renekton later on as well. Steadfast Presence, Hammer Shock, very good at slowing him down, knocking him into walls when he jumps in. Even got the Keeper's Verdict as well to try and knock him away if he gets into the midst of your team. So I just want to come back to something we talked about at the start of Pick and Ban. And it's something you said we're going to talk about a lot, push priority.
Yep.
Millenium, when they locked in the Elise, you said, okay, they're going to pick pushing lanes and they're going to look for those Elise ganks because she's so good at tower diving.
Yep.
Have they been able to do that in this draft?
Well, they've been able to get it on top side with the Renekton because he will naturally push into tanks very effectively, especially someone like a Poppy. So yes, they've got it on the top side of the map. Mid, I don't think so. I think that because of the range advantages that Azir has, he'll naturally be able to push the Cassio into tower and he can avoid trading with her at all points during the laning phase. And in the bottom, when you pick yourself a Tahm Kench, you naturally lose the ability to push. But what you do have with the Tahm Kench, depending on how creative your support is you can actually just gobble up your jungler and use your ultimate to get a flank in and then go for a dive on the bottom as they're pushing in. So there is that window. You have the Ash Arrow too. The thing that I'm excited about for Millenium's composition is their ability to start fights. You have the Tahm Kench ultimate, you have the Ash Arrow, you have the possibility of the Renekton flank. There are a lot of windows with which they can try and force these engages, and that's what I want to see more from Millenium. I want to see the classic Challenger bloodbath.
Well, we are into the second game of this series between PSG and Millenium. If you think PSG are going to win, make sure you tweet at us, hashtag PSGWin. And hashtag EUCS as well. If you think Millenium, on the other hand, will tie up the series and keep that 5-way tiebreaker alive, hashtag MILWin. I'm really interested to see how Millenium are able to use this more engage-orientated composition, because last game we said time and time again they just didn't have the way of forcing fights that they want. Now they've got Cocoon, they've got Ruthless Predator, they've got the Ash Arrow, they've got the Abyssal Voyage. They need to be forcing fights. And a couple of times in the last game, especially around that Infernal Drake, it looked like they knew how to coordinate the start of a fight. Here they have all of the tools to do it a lot easier.
They do. They do. But also for PSG, look at all the disengage tools that they have. You have the Emperor's Divide, you have the Lulu ultimate, as well as all the CC that Lulu naturally provides. You have the Hammer Time from White Knight. Like, there are a lot of tools to prevent a lot of these engages too. So I think the setup is going to be very important for both teams. For Millenium to get a reliable engage, they want to have that flanking opportunity, which is why this Tahm Kench ultimate is going to be very valuable. At the same time, PSG need to better control their vision to prevent Millenium from being able to get these effective flanks off. But it's that arrow that's going to be the big determining factor, I feel, in this game.
Steel's going to start on his blue side. Jungle going to solo it as well. Use those spiderlings to try and tank up some of the damage, perhaps.
Juicy play-by-play of a blue buff take. I love that, man.
I was going to move it into a point. Give me time here, Vedius.
I just love it. I love it. Just like, what do we talk about? You know what? Let's talk about how to take a blue buff.
Okay, I'm not going to make the good narrative point I had next. I'm not going to develop the story about Steel's jungle pathing.
I'd love to know about Steel's jungle pathing. Tell me all about Steel's jungle pathing.
So my thought was you start at blue.
Right.
And last game we saw PSG focus top lane for the first few minutes to get their Renekton ahead. Now, Mimic's on the Renekton. Steel started blue side. He can go towards that top lane about the 3-4 minute mark and try and get Mimic ahead against White.
The difference is, though, that it was Mimic who was pushing into White Knight when he was on the Rumble and White Knight was on the Renekton. But now it is Renekton that has the pushing power. So there's more windows for Kyrie to try and gank. But because he's on a Graze, he doesn't have that lane CC to allow the Renekton to get locked down. He's not at a massive risk. But because he's gotten this early push, look at this movement from Mimic. He's already trying to get some deep vision. He wants to see where Kyrie is in the enemy jungle. And he's actually being able to force Kyrie back a little bit.
The reason he can do that as well is the fact Steel's on the top side of the map after starting his blue buff, so he could always react if a fight started. All comes back to it, mate. It's all planned.
All come back to it. You read Steel like a book, mate. And now he will get vision control of the river by taking down that Scuttle Crab. So it's just going to better facilitate Mimic to play as aggressively as he wants. But you're also seeing now in the mid lane the range advantage that Blanc has. He's taking absolutely no damage. He has strong pushing power. Because we actually see a bit of an effective trade onto Mimic in the top lane.
Grasp of the Undying for White Knight sustaining him up as well. He's got the Corrupting Potion, so can just continue to try and trade in. Mimic jumps in, culls the weak, and gets a little bit of damage back. But Kaime's actually looking for this. Mimic has no idea it's going to happen.
Oh.
Has got flash. They can't. There's too many minions.
Yep.
Too many minions for White Knight to step forward.
That's actually a real shame. I thought that was a really good movement from Kyrie, jumping over the wall using the Blast Cone. Mimic had just gotten level 4, and that's what dissuaded them along with the big creep wave that was there. So PSG not able to get themselves a counter gank. Pushing pressure still being exerted from Mimic. Sorry, I thought I was going to lose words there, but it all made sense. It was, in fact, an accurate sentence.
Pushing pressure as well for PSG in the bottom lane. Pilot and Sprassel continually harassing Norscaring whenever he steps up. Blank doing the same to Pretty. So as you said, a lot of it on the top side of the map for Millenium in terms of wave push, and the bottom side and the mid lane really in favor of PSG.
I think it's worth talking about this bottom lane of PSG because we saw in game 1, Pilot really bodying Pinoy in the 1v1. It did help that he had the Caitlyn into a Jhin, but also just the way in which he was playing the game overall. Other than that one mistake that he made in the top side, I felt like the Pilot had a very strong performance.
Trade in by Pretty. Blank actually tries to jump back in, but he has to use the Ghost to get away. Had those Twin Fangs chomping down onto Blank, but the Snake can't quite take down the bird yet.
Nothing but respect for Blanc in that trade because I would have just backed out. Like, oh, I'm going to die to Cassio, flash, run away. But Blanc was like, nope, I know I'm going to get the shield on the E. I know that he's in the minion wave, so I can utilize that effective damage. I can actually win out on this trade, and he forces the Ghost out of Pretty. I like that awareness. And now both junglers just moving to the mid. They want to help get the push so that their mid laners can go back to base, buy some of their items. Blanc very likely going to work towards some very early magic resistance once again because you have the Cassio and you have Steel. On the Elise. And right now, Kira just investing a bit of priority, getting around control of this dragon.
Kira does have the level advantage over Steel as well. He's sitting 12 CS up, mostly because he's taken his Quags once. So that's 10 CS right there.
Oof.
But he's also got stronger vision control of Steel. If you look, he's got Scuttle Crab around the Ocean Drake. He's got a ward in the river, a ward stepping up towards that mid lane as well. It's control wards. Basically, I can only see one ward on the map for the entirety of Millenium because they're getting pushed in the mid, they're getting pushed in the bot, and it means you can't step forward into that river to try and get any of your warding totems down.
Great exemplification of how...
Exemplification.
Yes, of how pushing lanes are so important. Loved it, Medic.
Thanks, man. It's all been planned from that Steel blue buff.
Yeah.
Steel coming down towards the bottom lane, though Cocoon does not connect onto Spratle. Steel will happily take away that control ward, but Kyrie has not been spotted as he snuck in here. He's going to look to step forward. Was waiting for Blank to hit 6, but the Miasma came down and stopped Blank in his tracks.
At the very least, they were hoping to try and get a flash out of Pretty, but they could not quite pull it off. And now, Pretty as an individual is someone that Steel often invests a lot of his resources into trying to get him ahead. And on the Casio, he has a lot of potential to snowball this kind of a game, but we haven't really seen much from Steel. And you talked a little bit about it in game 1, where he's often behind his jungle opponent. Well, it looks like we're seeing that once again here.
And he spends a lot of time around this mid lane as well. Blank has yet to burn a summoner. He's playing incredibly safe, has the Emperor's Divide as well. We see Steel coming in, level 4 to the level 6 on Kairei. He just hasn't been effective with his time early on.
No, he has not. And you would expect a little bit more as he's playing the Elise, given that Elise is all about early pressure, early invading. I felt like we were critical in Champions. Like how are you going to utilize this Elise properly when you don't have the pushing lanes? They haven't even considered trying to set up a dive top lane. And remember, White Knight, he was chunked out pretty heavily. You could have maybe looked to have the Elise go for a dive top, but priority for Steel is always on this mid lane. He wants to try and get pretty ahead. He wants to try and snowball this Casio. He just hasn't quite been able to do it. And now, given the deficit that he's suffering up against Kirei, his mid-game value is severely going to struggle.
That it is, and you have to remember Millenium have consistently been the bridesmaid and never the bride. Like they've got to playoffs every time since they were relegated from LCS in Challenger Series, and they have never won and got back into the LCS. So for the last 2 years, they've got to 3 playoffs and perhaps this one, and have never got through to that Challenger to the LCS. They are so close; they're on the cusp of it time and time again, and they're just not quite able to grasp that final opportunity.
Well, Millenium have to win this game if they want to even consider playoffs. And even then, they're going to have to force tiebreakers, so they will not be done yet. So they have definitely made things difficult for themselves. With PSG, they're feeling pretty comfortable. The gold is identical, Medic. And what this often means is that not very much is happening.
It's been a vision game early on, and I think if you're PSG, you're quite happy with this. We talked about it in picks and bans. Kairei takes a while just to farm up. White Knight as well on a tank will take a bit of time. You've got Blank, you've got Pilot. They're not aggressive lanes, they're pushing lanes, but they're not always looking for the kill early on.
But let's just experiment with what I was talking about. Look at all the light in the bottom half of PSG's jungle right now.
It sounds so bad.
Millenium are enlightened. They have so much knowledge of where Kirei is right now.
It sounds like you're a bad yogi.
No, it's not. It's all about the light. Because then you are submerged in darkness when you lack light. You are unaware of the darkness in your heart.
But what if you're a Sith and the darkness makes you stronger? Is that a team that plays really well about having no vision?
There are no Jedi in League of Legends. That is a different brand.
Master Yi
is not a Jedi.
He has a lightsaber in one of the skins, I'm pretty sure.
No, that doesn't count, okay? That skin is, I'm just going to say it's not allowed in competitive play, right? For that exact purpose. But look, like, so much light is in the bottom half of the map.
Darth Vedius. That's amazing.
I feel like I have the
Sith Lord.
I have the wrinkled skin of a Sith Lord.
Can we get you with a hood on one of the
I always have a hood.
Yeah, but you have like a full-on hood, and then we get some light coming out of your fingers in the form of electricity.
Join the dark side, Medic. We fire lightning from our hands. And we have the cool red lightsabers.
Oh yeah, I always forget about the cool red lightsaber. They do look so much better than the other ones.
Would you go for a red, a purple, or a blue, or a green?
One of my favorite colors is purple.
I'm a big fan of purple, I must admit. I quite like the purple. But yeah, anyway, back to the game. Mimic. Going for a dive top.
White Knight getting dived by Mimic and Steel. The Keeper's Verdict knocks him away. Steel gonna look for it though, gets knocked into the wall, and he's
White Knight
gonna go down. White Knight with the outplay once again.
1 versus 2. White Knight gets himself the kill, channeling his inner force to get the outplay onto the Millenium duo. And this could not go any worse. Steel only level 6. Kairei, he's now looking for a play down bot.
That he is. Norscaven and Pinoy need to be careful. The curtain call comes down. Norscaven takes up a couple. Enchanted Crystal tanked up by Spratle. The thick skin, though, is enough to keep Norscaven alive for the moment. That's going to drop off, and he's going to get sniped by Pilot. And PSG continue to look for this tower. Pretty's on his way down. Pinoy underneath the turret trying to survive. Cannot survive through Pilot. Pretty now, though, has the Petrifying Gaze, has the Ghost coming in. Spraddle is there. Pretty's going to try and get the Miasma down. Kairei takes up a couple of shots. Petrifying Gaze doesn't connect. The exhaust down as well. Blank shuffles his way forward. Steel joins the fight. PSG take 3 and get away safely.
Everything is going so wrong for Millenium, and while that dive was not the cleanest from PSG, they still get exactly what they want. And look at this outplay from Knight, right?
It was a lot cleaner than this dive.
It certainly was. He's able to use his ultimate to make it a 1 versus 1. The red buff is still hitting onto White Knight, which actually gives tower aggro down onto Steel. White Knight has the level advantage as well as a fantastic stun, enables him to get the 2 versus 1 outplay, and now PSG, they want to make the cross-map play on the other side of the map. They want to be able to either get themselves a couple kills or get themselves the tower. Note that Norscarin, he doesn't have his flash available. Pinoy is not very strong at this point in the game, and so they just try and force the dive. And it's a little bit messy because they don't properly have a minion wave. They're not really tying their CC in together, but they still will get themselves a kill. And I like the fact that Pyle is the initiator. When it comes to tanking the tower, he knows he has the heal. You know he can tank those shots. They get themselves 2 kills, and Pretty even ends up burning his ghost in return. So big advantages being gained for PSG.
Once again, PSG's early game comes up trumps, and Millenium are left floundering to some degree. We've seen last week Jisoo on this Poppy was able to get kills in a 2v1 tower dive. Once again, White Knight is doing it, has used his TP, but he is incredibly strong at the moment, almost got the Sunfire K.
But White Knight is a player we have to talk about because he joined the roster last week. A lot of question marks were surrounding how will he impact this PSG roster who had so much hype surrounding them, and coming into the split, they did not meet those expectations. They were not able to really perform until this individual joined the roster, and all of a sudden this is like a different team. He's getting so many individual outplays. He's making such a big impact to the team, and it reminds me of when Mickey joined Splice, right? Just one individual being changed on the roster has just made such a different feel to the whole team play.
We kind of saw the converse with teams like Fnatic, who lost their jungler in Broxah and then had 3 bad weeks until Amazing was able to get back in. PSG have been able to make this proactive change, and it's coming out well for them at the moment. They're looking to solidify their spot in the playoffs. Still only 400 gold ahead. It's not a massive lead. It's just extended to 500, but Kairei has done a superb job of continuing to push up this vision line in that blue side jungle and take away that blue buff.
Now, while Millenium did fail that dive up top, Mimic has still been continuously pushing the Poppy underneath the turret, which means that because the tower has gradually taken chip damage over time, Kirei has not been there to provide support for White Knight. That did result in the tower going down up top, which is why that play down bottom was so important, because PSG needed to be able to return the global objective, and so they will get that tower back. But now Mimic, he's just used all of his gap close. I think it would be fun, though. There's no collapse coming out from PSG.
He has the empowered Colder Meek as well if he wanted it, so would have gained a lot of health back from that. But he's looking for a flank onto Blank. Not going to be able to get too much out here as Blank just continually clears up the wave. And although this Azir was picked on quite early in the draft, it's been pretty safe for Blank in all honesty. He's happy just to farm himself up and shuffle away whenever Pretty tries to be aggressive.
So far, Blank, he's had a decent game. Yet to have much impact. He has actually struggled a little bit in farm because I think that he made that map movement up top. He's also made a map movement down bottom. So Pretty focusing a little bit more on farm rather than anything else. But I'm just looking at some of these items that have been completed as well now. Blanc sitting at that completed Nash's Tooth. Oh,
Pinoy! Oh, the ammo comes out straight away though, and Pinoy will get himself out. They're going to TP in. White Knight is here. The Keeper's Verdict doesn't quite connect. Mimic looking for Kairei, goes onto White Knight instead. Pinoy's going to keep chasing. Norscarin's on his way down towards the bottom wave as well, but Millenium actually looking for this turret more than anything because Pilot is on the top side trying to do a counter turret push.
And notice that Steel and Norscarin are making their way through the jungle. They have the 4-man unit. They don't have a minion wave though.
This wave is a long way away.
They may very well just look to face tank it. No, this does mean that Pilot is going to get priority onto that tower, but he's just an individual. Now White Knight getting collapsed on.
That first person comes down. He's going to put the hammers out. Looking for the Devour. Norscarin flashes in. White Knight has to flash away. And Millenium will be able to get turret in that bottom lane a little bit quicker, you have to think, than PSG. However, first turret's already gone down. So it's not the end of the world.
I think the trade is fine. PSG make the right decision. Millenium wanted to try and get themselves a kill as well. You can see the intent. They realize, oh, Pilot's up top. Let's not bother trying to match it. Let's just make the cross-map play in the bottom half of the map. And so they will equalize out on the objectives. But it is actually PSG that is sitting very comfortably now in the gold lead. And Blanc is slowly chipping down onto this mid-tier 1 as well. So PSG are actually in a better setup to continue utilizing this gold lead that they have.
Scale really well as well with this Azir, but he's looking for the chase. Noxious Blast will get the speed up. Blanc jumps in. Petrifying Gaze does not quite connect, but he does have Flash if he wants to chase this. Flash away by Blanc. But he's used that Ghost. There's a Noxious Blast once again, but the rest of PSG collapse. Not quite able to get the kill with the collateral damage, nor scaring off towards the side, chasing away Kyrie. Millenium have to retreat from the fight.
Very close exchange between the two mid laners. All of the summoners were burned. It would have been very close for Blanc if he just had a little bit more damage. That would have resulted in Pretty's downfall. But now, boots have been completed for Blanc. I think he could have considered going for Merc Treads, especially with the amount of utility on the side of Millenium. Regardless, he will be going towards a bit more damage. I think that is his key role, given that you do have the big tank in the form of White Knight, and you have Sprawl on the Lulu. Nevertheless now, Dragon spawning in about 2 minutes. Aggression once again being exerted by PSG.
We haven't seen a typical Pinoy here. He's been a lot more passive on this Ashe, not really playing one of those carries that we tend to see, you know, the MF, the Caitlyn, the Jhin. He's had to be a lot more passive in the way he's played and a lot more defensive, and he's using that arrow much more as just a dissuasion tool than an engage.
Well, it's difficult right now for Millenium to actually force the engage, as they're going to try and do it now, but this is the power of Lulu versus Renekton. Makes it very difficult for him to close the gap because of how effective Lulu is at kiting and zoning and basically being a pest. They do lock down White Knight,
but it's just a hell pick
shield,
and
jokes.
White Knight doesn't do much at all. It's battled out towards the side, but he's trying to face into Blanc, but Blanc dodges out the Noxious Blast. Pin Fang's out, Fine Gaze comes down. Here's the Curtical Pinoy looking for Blanc. He gets taken low, but devoured up by Norscair, and Steel gets knocked back as well. I thought there was a Kha'Zix in the game when I saw the insects jumping across the map like that, but they do get the mid lane tower, and PSG are continuing to chase Pretty up towards the top side. I think he might escape, although they spotted him with the Scryer's Bloom, and Blanc is on the flank. Elpix comes out looking for the Glitter Lance. Miasma down. Deadly Flourish doesn't connect. Blanc steps forward with the soldiers, and now Pilot should just be able to take out this kill. There we go. Easy enough for PSG. 4 kills to naught.
Took them a while, but usually when you commit to a champion like that as Steel.
Still getting caught out by White Knight as well. Mimic's going to jump him to Kyrie. He's trying to slice and dice across the wall, but cannot get the connection. And White Knight and Kyrie in it, what is essentially a 2v4, just walk straight out.
Millenium not able to claw anything
Pinoy's got
back.
arrow. He's looking for it. Connects onto White Knight. Norscair there in the front line. Mimic slicing away. He's going to try and get back onto that Poppy. Devoured, eaten up, and taken down by PSG. Eventually, Pinoy will take him out.
All right, so Millenium are able to get themselves 1 return kill at the very least. But this could result in a dragon as well. Kire, he doesn't feel strong enough. He still needs to go back to base. But a lot of low health members on Millenium, so they're not going to be able to commit. So overall, I want to say that was a kill advantage to PSG. Regardless, they managed to get themselves the tier 1 tower in the mid lane. They invested a lot of members into trying to kill Pretty, and while they do get the kill, the issue that they have is that they weren't better, or they weren't properly able to set up for another objective. Fortunately, Millenium then continue to chase themselves for a kill, and now Steel is trying to stop this dragon.
TP comes in as well. Pilot and Blanc there. Pretty down to half HP. Norscair voyages his way in. Baron's still low. Mimic onto Pilot. White Knight takes out Pretty though with his flank of his own. Now Mimic eaten up by Norscair trying to get the Renekton out of the fight. Steel is low. Emperor's Divide comes down and knocks Norscair back. The Ocean Drake goes across the PSG. They'll chase the Tarm Kench down and they'll gobble him right up. PSG get 2 kills and get the dragon.
They're actually eyeing up the Baron right now. They are quickly moving over to that big objective. They were able to kill 2 members, but Steel is still alive. He's also just gone back to base. I think they should have just taken the dragon. This is a very risky move from PSG.
We've seen PSG fall to this sort of move before. It's an arrow almost up for Pinoy. PSG going to start it. They've got a lot of damage, of course, with the Azir, with the Graves, with the Jhin.
Here they come.
Pinoy on the flank, 5,000 HP on the Baron. Steel, a level behind, will look for the smite. Fight. White Knight puts the verdict down, but it's not guilty at the moment. The smite comes down, and Millenium take the Baron.
PSG go for the 50-50 Baron play, but it is Steel that gets it away. Living true to his namesake, keeping Millenium's hopes alive in this series. This just backtracks to where the play started. The fact that PSG, they committed to the Baron at first, Millenium tried to get the collapse, and I feel like they should have just conceded this objective. Look at how split up the Millenium roster is. There is no reliable way for them to get a safe engage off, and PSG can just pick the targets that they want, one at a time, slowly etching the Millenium lineup down. But PSG, they go for Baron.
We've seen this time and time again from PSG, and
now
now they give up a lot of the push pressure they had because you're fighting against Baron minions. Pinoy is low though, Noskevin will eat him up, but not before he gets taken down by Blank. And PSG can now turn and burn straight in. Blank is incredibly strong with this Nash's 2, with the Sorcerer's Boost as well. Noskevin will try and gobble up the Crocodile. Here, Alligator tastes quite nice in all honesty, quite a lot like chicken. So that you know.
I've heard the frog tastes like chicken too. A lot of things taste like chicken.
Actually, a catfish.
But you know what doesn't taste like chicken?
Losing.
Oh, wow. You took it. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was going to use the word defeat, but losing works too.
Tastes like disappointment.
It does taste like disappointment.
Well, Millenium on the losing side of this. Only 3,000 gold behind, and of course they have 4 Baron buffs remaining. It extends this game a little bit, but is that what Millenium want? You're facing into a Poppy, into a Graves, into an Azir, into a Jhin. Do you want this to get to late game?
No.
Good answer. Great color point there by you, Benny. It's really good. Almost as good as me play-by-playing the blue buff. Are you leading this somewhere? 20 minutes down the line, are you going to say, you know how I said we didn't want this to get to late game?
I think the thing you have to be mindful of is both teams actually have decent late games. Like Azir and Cassio both offer different strengths, but they both scale very nicely into the late game. Pretty is more like high single target damage, so even if a Poppy's on the front line, the issue with Cassio is that she will just shred through you, but so much more value is given in Team Price's Blank gets locked up.
Ammo onto Blank, steal there as well, and he's just dead. No cleanse available, but he's going to ghost in. They're going for the chase. Abyssal Voyage, used Tom Kench comes down and gets knocked away straight away. Millenium decide against continuing this chase. Mimic still in the bottom lane, and we'll look for that push on the turret. Has Baron, of course. It's going to be very difficult to deal with on this Renekton.
So good pick from Millenium to be able to catch Blank out. He's going to be a lot of their wave clear. And now Millenium can look to set up a siege onto this outer tower. They have the TP available, but ooh, PSG going for the re-engage.
Shadow Core comes down, pretty low. Noskevin just trying to tank it up. Of course, has the thick skin, will use it. Not quite quickly though. Jin's holding this final shot. Pretty gets taken down. They get a turret in the bottom lane. Millenium will be okay with that trade, but PSG will be very happy they were able to get a kill.
So PSG, they still lose the inner tower in the bottom lane. That gain will go over to Millenium, even though they've lost their mid laner. But could PSG respond? Notice that they are setting up for a push in mid. The Azir is not there because he's forced to wave cut down the bottom lane. So unlikely that PSG will be able to get a net objective, but they can get themselves a lot of light in the top half of Millenium's jungle.
I hate it. I hate it so much. I want to come back to some of the points we were making in picks and bans. We talked especially about Steel on this Elise needing to be aggressive early on. Hasn't really been able to fulfill that role, and now has fallen very far behind in terms of just overall gold. He's almost half of his opposing jungler's CS, sitting at 70. Look at that, 7,000. Oh, okay. That doesn't really fulfill my point. CS, he's miles behind.
He stole the Baron.
He did.
Which is what the important thing is, right? The fact that he was able to net that objective for his team somewhat makes up for his
I'm trying to work out
deficit.
where all of his extra gold comes from. Because he's 60 CS behind. He's 1-1, but he's still within about 600 gold. I guess they got first turret. We could see a little bit, but maybe he's just been taking the priority jungle camps.
I mean, you do get a lot of. I mean, he's still 600 gold behind Kiro, right?
Yeah, that's true. It's still a sizable margin.
They're even in objectives. They're definitely behind in kills. Ooh, nice sidestep. Here comes the Tom Kench.
Voyage comes in. Kyrie trying to sidestep. The exhaust comes down. They're going to chase over onto the Graves. Mimic flashes in. Kyrie going low. He's almost taken out here by Millenium, but he's going to escape, and the blast comes there. He knocks himself back, and he gets away.
Nice pick coming out from Millenium, but then PSG get an equally good disengage. Millenium aren't quite able to get themselves a kill, and now they're actually looking for a dive on the mid. But notice, a lot of ultimates have been used. There is no Abyssal Voyage coming out from Noskevin, and the arrow is on cooldown. Mimic, he does not have his I'm a big alligator, listen to me roar.
Dominus, I believe, is the...
I prefer my name, and now PSG...
you also prefer calling Vision Light.
That's very true. So PSG, they're looking now to get the re-engage, because they have a lot of ultimates themselves. They have a lot of pushing power with the Azir. Ooh, they find Kyrie.
Speaking of the engage, Steel has been jumped on here by Blank. He's going to try and repel up, but you can't repel away from 4 members of PSG. Noskevin knocked back as well as White Knight collapses. PSG take 2 kills, going to take a mid lane tower as well, and they could look even for the inhibitor push here. Millenium on the back foot. 3 members v5. Pretty isn't even there. This is just inhibitor tower going down. PSG just turning this game right around. They'll take the inhibitor out as well. And they get so much off this push.
Exactly what PSG needed to do.
Oh, he just about survived, but the flash in by Blank. Millenium at odds and ends now with PSG clean up.
PSG taking advantage of the fact that Millenium invested so many resources into trying to get the pick down onto Kirei. If they had gone that kill, this would have been a very different outcome, but PSG were quick to push down mid. They're able to catch out Steel, who still has his flash available, and he's not quite able to react as quickly as Kirei did when the pick came in. PSG just continue to push and push and push, and now they have reclaimed control over the game.
If you're Millenium, your hearts must sink a little bit with that push, because up until then, you know, you stole Baron, you were still in the game, it was only about 1,000 different. Kyrie is actually going to get collapsed on here by Mimic. White Knight will knock Mimic into the wall and actually trading quite effectively with the Alligator. Mountain Drake does go down for Millenium though. They'll be able to take that, but they're emotionally, it's an incredibly tough time for them because they need this win to stay in contention for playoffs. Gun and Call comes down, won't connect onto Prissy. PSG have to be happy just sitting on this 5,000 gold lead.
And as you rightly said, that is the most important thing to emphasize here. Millenium, if they lose this game, they are guaranteed not to make it to playoffs. They'll only be sitting on 4 points. There's no way that you can have 3 teams sit on 4 points.
They have to fight their way back into the Challenger Series if they lose this game as well. We'll look at this again. Steel just gets caught out by Blood.
Yep, and again, it just comes back to PSG. A very good capitalization on the fact that a lot of summoner spells, a lot of ultimates were used for Millenium, so PSG just quickly rush down mid, knowing that they can force any fight and they can commit to any kind of play because Millenium do not have the tools in their kit to respond.
We spoke about pushing advantage and light a lot this game. Look at how lit up Millenium's red side jungle is. A couple of control wards there, there's just a normal long range ward, I think one of them just expired, but because of that, White Knight was able to quite freely roam through that jungle and get the flank onto Norscarin to get that second kill of the previous play, and now he's still got teleport up, he can just split push in a different lane. Mimic doesn't have his TP, which means they have to respect the fact that PSG could go for this Baron and have White Knight teleport in.
I would very much not like PSG to go for the Baron.
I agree, it doesn't tend to work for them.
Please don't do Baron, you keep getting it stolen away. There's no need to either. Like, I hate it when teams rely on Baron to be their main win condition. They're so strong right now, PSG. Perhaps use it as a means to force a fight. That is a more effective tool than saying, oh no, what do we do, guys? Let's try Baron and let's try and outsmite our opponents. That's definitely an effective method that'll net us a spot in the playoffs.
Especially against someone with percentage health damage like
yeah,
who could just venomous bite down and take it out quite quickly. But you do sometimes see teams playing around that vision game, as you say, and understanding that the enemy team has quite good anti-siege, so you need a Baron just to help you with that final push. Prissy's got good wave plays, those Pinoy Mimics, not trading effectively into White Knight, but trading well enough just to clear out any wards. I don't think PSG have spotted that ward they're standing on.
Oh,
there we go. Spotter's like, oh, guys, Scrying Blue didn't hit this spot. Clear out vision once again, and push Millenium into an area of no light, also known as darkness. Deadly Flourish onto Steel. Devoured up by Norscarin, and then the Cursed Call comes down, so they're looking for the snipe here. Blank going to continue to step forward. Kyrie there into the cocoon. Norscarin had to use the thick skin in China Crystal Arrow onto Kyrie. Pretty can't get the flank though. Teleport is going to come in by Mimic. He's looking to get in the back of this fight. Pretty's going to ghost away. Steel there once again. Blank is by himself, and he can shuffle across the wall. The cocoon doesn't connect. Kyrie jumps in. Divide. Blank takes out Pinoy. Pretty going to go down as well off towards the side of the fight. Just about survives. Mimic is in the midst of 3 members of PSG. Swaddle's taking out Steel. It's up to Mimic. It's up to Pretty. It's up to Norscarin to try and do something. But the GA comes down. Pretty has taken out Blank. Mimic's dead as well. Pilot's dominating. Pretty's going to try and get away from Sprotter. Oh, they're so close! He could follow the auto attack all the way back to the base, but he needs to get back because the Nexus towers were getting pounded down by White Knight.
But now is a safe time for PSG to make their way over to the Baron. A very convincing team fight win goes in the favor of PSG. They net themselves the objective.
There's no jungler to steal it away from them.
Not this time, and they have full vision control over the top side of Millenium's jungle, so it will be very difficult for them to try and contest. Clean execution from PSG, and these are the fights that I like, Medic. They fight over vision. They try
light.
That light, yeah. They wish to see a brighter future. And Millenium, as they move into their jungle, they say, but it is I that wishes to cleanse the darkness from our half of the map. But PSG say, nay, it is we that shall claim the light. And they force a fight. They come out victorious, thanks to catching Steel out of position, chunking him out. And then they're able to quickly rotate around. They get themselves the Baron. Now they're feeling pretty good. Now we see a bit of a death brush being set up for Millenium, but PSG have said, we're going mid. See you guys later.
It seems like a really odd position to set up a death push as well. You've got top lane pushing in. Mid inhibitors just respawned. There's no tower there for PSG to have to fight into. So why set up a bush down towards the bottom lane when PSG can just push through mid? Actually, looks like they might go down towards bot now, but it's continuing just pressure Millenium off the map. 7,000 gold their lead, 15 kills to 3. This has been the PSG that people thought they'd see at the start of the split. Eventually, they have got to this team that has great synergy and knows exactly how they want to play every portion of the game.
Now PSG with the Baron buff, making it very difficult for Millenium to answer. White Knight has been such a key part of PSG's success. 3-1 and 4 on this Poppy. And it looks like PSG are going to try and close things out.
Looking for their second inhibitor tower. Here comes the arrow, doesn't connect onto Blank. White Knight was the target. Millenium now need to back away from the curtain call as Pilot once again opens up Whisper. Tries to snipe away his target. Steel almost gets taken out. Kaime with the collateral damage can't get it because of the repel, but PSG just want the inhibitors. They just want the objectives. They just want the win. 2 inhibitors down. Blank shuffles in, pushes Pretty back. The dancing shoes were great. Pretty tries to get away with the gaze, but the gaze of PSG is straight on the Nexus. Straight on the Nexus towers as they look to take this series 2-0 and get their spot in the playoffs.
PSG with a commanding victory, 33 minutes into the game, 18 kills to 4, gonna make it 19 as PSG go for the 2-0.
PSG are playing like the machine we thought they would be at the start of the split. They have come to life at exactly the right moment, and they will beat Millenium 2-0.
Great game from PSG, great series overall from PSG. They looked very convincing. They had good lane priority, good vision control, good cross-map plays, fought over vision. Fighting over vision. And overall, I thought it was a great game. There was a couple of good answers from Millenium. The Baron steal was great. I want to give every props to Steel for stealing that one away. But also, PSG, let's not do that again. Let's not.
It's a trap they've fallen into time and time again, though.
And they need to stop doing that. You'd think that they would learn from how many times it's failed in the past, but they're like, we'll get it this time, surely. What could go wrong, you know?
It feels to me like they understand that sometimes starting a Baron and drawing the enemy in to play around, like if you get them close enough, you can then kill them. And instead of, so it's the bait Baron. They understand that point, but they forget that you need to stop doing the Baron to be able to have that happen. But Millenium's woes, compounded by that 2-0, means they can't make playoffs. It means that PSG are guaranteed through to the playoffs, and it actually sadly reduces the amount of tiebreakers we can have. No longer that 5-way tie that we were all hoping and praying for. But Millenium, it comes back to Dropped, in all honesty. We talked about it earlier on. Elise, strong early jungler, and then not really picking lanes that work well with it.
Yeah, I think that when we look back at PSG moving into playoffs, this is not a team that could beat Schalke. They now need to keep their eyes onto making sure that they do not sit in that 4th place spot. And right now, on the table, they sit above Misfits, okay? So if Schalke end up getting the 2-0 over Misfits Academy in our next series, then this is actually a great thing for PSG because they can avoid Schalke then, because then they'll be sitting at 7, Schalke will be sitting at 15, and that's exactly what you want to do. So if you're PSG, you're now supporting who are effectively your rivals within the Challenger Series because you don't want to have to play them in the semi-final given how dominant they have looked. And I think that a lot of the decision-making, the passive early game that we have been seeing from PSG would be difficult to deal with when you consider how strong of an early game Schalke have demonstrated.
PSG were one of the only teams we saw threaten Schalke in the early game, though. They went 8-1 up in one of their games, so maybe it's just the knife in the side of Schalke. We'll have to wait and see. We have one winner on the books here, but there's so much more action coming up. After the break, we'll jump into our second matchup of the day between Schalke 04 and Misfits Academy. Make sure you stick around.
Back to the game. Mimic Going for a dive top.
White Knight getting dived by Mimic and Steel. The keeper's verdict knocks him away. Steel gonna look for it though, gets knocked into the wall, and he's
White Knight
gonna go down. White Knight with the outplay once again. Norscaven voyages his way in. Baron's still low. Mimic onto Pilot. White Knight takes out Pretty though, with his flank of his own. Now Mimic eaten up by Norscaven, trying to get the Renekton out of the fight. Steel is low, and Booster Bite comes down and knocks Norscaven back. The Ocean Drake goes across the PSG. They'll chase the Tarm Kench down, and they'll gobble him right up.
Here they come.
Pinoy on the flank, 5,000 HP on the Baron. Steel a level behind, will look for the smite. Fight. White Knight puts the verdict down, but it's not guilty at the moment.
Oh!
The smite comes down, and Millenium take the Baron. They get so much off this push.
Exactly what PSG needed
Pinoy!
to do.
Oh, he just about survived, but the flash in by Blank. They have come to life at exactly the right moment, and they will beat Millenium 2-0.